What's going on? I've been having these kind of like thoughts playing in my brain, right? It's like there's two types of basically there's like two types of medics, man, or like the healers, man. There's doctors, man, and for the most part, they got a building, right? And they're there every day in this building. But you also have this other kind of you could look at it like a field medic that he's a medic on the battlefield. So he might have a gun, you know what I'm saying? But when someone else gets hurt, he stops what he's doing and he tends to their wounds. So it's kind of like same thing. There's like priests, or so-called, like religious type figures that they have a building. They're there every week. And during the time of Christ, the Pharisees and the temple, all that, they had these types there, but there was no healings going on. There's always sacrifices and sales, but there wasn't no one getting saved, no one getting set free. People are actually compliant with their kind of like getting manipulated. So it's kind of like I see like even Christ himself, he was like there's this thing called the Order of Melchizedek, and from what I recall of it, there's a time when Abraham ties to this guy. Like this guy comes walking up, and he's got nothing, and Abraham like ties to him food and kills an animal. And then the priest cuts it in half and gives half back to Abraham and blesses him for it. So it's kind of like same way, like Christ wasn't like a doctor in a hospital. He wasn't a priest that was in a particular building all the time. He was on the move. He was more like a field medic. Wherever there was need, he would perform. So, and it's like, and once again, the priests or the doctor, they got all their stuff on hand. They got staff on hand. But there's another guy who needs to move. Same thing. Like there's during the time when when the Levitical priesthood was established, they didn't have permanent dwelling places. These guys were moving around. It was flowing. I'm not sure how it all work together, fit together, but I can see the difference between the Levitical, which turned into the Pharisees, and the temple style situation. And then you had Christ, who was out in the street and in the highways and byways and on the boats, you know what I mean, and walking the trail from town to town. And that's kind of the what the Order of Melchizedek to me appears to be. And Melchizedek was called the King of Salem. And when someone mentioned Salem recently, because that's the first place in America that the eclipse is going to touch, and it got me thinking about this. It's like Christ says, the foxes and the birds all have nests and homes, but the Son of Man has no home. It's the same thing. Like the King of Salem, was he really a king? Did he really have a kingdom? Or was he talking a spiritual thing? Same thing with, like, people talk about, the sacrifices in the Old Testament in Leviticus. The priest kills the animal, gives the parts that you don't need to eat. They burn them. They quarter the animal. The priest takes 2/4, and then he gives the family 2/4. They sup together. The priest eats. The people who made the sacrifice eat. That's what it looks like with the Order of Melchizedek. And even Christ would do this all the time. And once again, he's healing. He don't have no money. He doesn't have materials. He don't even have a home. He's moving from spot to spot. It's like they're examples. And it's just like, people always want to talk about obedience, but yet they do not have mercy. And it's That's the fruit that they bear. It's like, yeah, you might know scripture, you might be able to debate and win the argument, but you're still lacking the mercy. So therefore, you're not really being obedient, because God is really full of tender mercies. And that's the way he wants us. That's the sacrifices that he wants, is that us to be merciful to them that are afflicted and those that are ignorant, and even to them that are our enemy falsely, that don't know what the heck they are really doing. They're ignorant, and even those who do know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because that's the true level, I guess, of agape, of the agape love type situation. But people aren't really, they're not privy to this, man. For some reason, they're blind to it. That tears, like genuine, sincere, earnest, honest tears, not pity tears for yourself, or like, I'm discontent. It's just, no, I can't stand to see what they're doing to people, and it hurts me. And you got to feel a little bit of that, because that's the juice, the fuel it's going to take for you to have the mercy. Is that you actually have to feel it. You got to let yourself be, you know what I'm saying? Kind of feel dip your feet in the freaking water. You know what I mean? So you can feel the temperature for yourself. And it's crazy stuff. But I was seeing that because since I started doing the plants, and I'm like, man, what does all this mean? The medicines. I had many opportunities. I was watching these people, and they all had different afflictions, and I realized that God has already went and showed me all these enough uses with the little that I'm working with, having nothing, that I could just walk outside and snatch up a plant because I recognize it. Because of, I've studied, I've sought it out, but it was also because I had to step out in faith and know that God would provide and show me the things that I needed to know. And he does. And it's the same thing. It's like being a medic that, not a doctor. It's like being a Melchizedek priest as opposed to a priest, a pharisaical priest. You know what I'm saying? Which it was still it was still Aaronic, which means from the tribe of Aaron, or from Aaron, the sons of Aaron, my bad. But yet over time it degenerated into just, another form of tribute. It was just another, they turned into a form of tribute system, and they were using God's name to get people. They were standing in the way of God, and people, like, you got to go through us, so you got to pay tribute if you want to talk to God. That's the same thing that the popes and all of them have always done, in the Caesars. So it's a pretty it's a weird thing. It's almost like it's freestyle. It's on the fly. It's spontaneous, as opposed to being all ritual, ceremonialized, that it loses its power. So it's kind of like, this is stuff that I've been seeing lately. So it's like, yeah, it's just it's odd that the king of Salem thing, Salem witch hunt, and they're always calling people who tell you the truth. They're always labeled a heretic, or a terrorist, or a traitor, or they're given some kind of an N-word. They're given some kind of despicable title. But just like they did to Christ, they rejected Christ. They rejected the prophets. They rejected God himself. It said in Samuel, it says, "They have not rejected you this day, but they have rejected me." God speaking to Samuel. So I don't know, man. It's just keep an open mind, man. Don't go the way that they would.